Hello there and welcome back to Cybos TV. I'm your host for today and for the rest of the week, Daisy McAndrew. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Boston Convention Center. Now we're talking all things IT now. IT on two tracks, what does that expression even mean? Does it have relevance? Does it exist? Well, to help me through this subject matter, I'm delighted to be joined by an expert panel. To my far right, we have Catherine Berger, Bank Systems and Technology. Welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining us here on the stage. To Catherine's left, Ron Ram from Deutsche Bank. Welcome to the program. To my left, Kirsten Wilberg from PayPal. Thank you so much for being here, Kirsten. And finally, Michael Shipton from Euroclear. Good morning to you all and welcome to you all. Well, Catherine, if I might start with you first, what is this expression, IT on two tracks? What does it mean? Does it mean anything in this day and age?
Well, it means something, although I don't know that we decided that it means what the session description said. There are definitely two very strong imperatives, challenges facing IT organizations right now. One is to support the business, run the business, help manage risk, keep things reliable, fast, efficient, all those things. Increasingly, IT organizations are asked to be part of a drive towards innovation that we're seeing in financial services. We're hearing a lot about digital financial services, customer experience. All these things sort of imply new ways of doing things, improving, transforming, all those buzzwords. So I think the conclusion of our panel was that it's not either or. You can't really split IT. You might have specific assignments, but that you have to bring innovation into everything that the IT organization does. It's not just the new products and new things, but innovative ways to do what you've always done as well.
Well, Rom, I saw you nodding away there. What's your experience at Deutsche Bank? How do you arrange things?
Exactly. So sort of in line with what Kathy's saying, we started off a few years ago actually splitting our channel away from our processing engines. But what we've found is we need to innovate across the whole stack. So we've now spent the last 18 months putting in place a bunch of processes arranged around how the client views all of our services that is much more in line with IT's got to be innovative and reliable right the way through the stack.
Because it's interesting, isn't it, one's traditional view of the role of IT, the position of IT, the sort of status within the firm itself has completely changed. It's been ripped up over the last few years, and it must be very difficult for organizations to keep pace with that. Yeah,
I mean, to a large extent, IT is becoming kind of the business itself, even though it's not really the business. So it's an integral part to how the organization works. And in our discussion, we actually talked about how it's not just the job of IT to figure out how to do all of these things. The whole organization has to line up in order to provide the services that we want to provide to our customers.
Kirsten, is it easier for a company like PayPal because you're relatively young compared to a bank like Deutsche Bank, and IT has always been at the core of what you've done, so therefore those roles are easier to align?
So I do think it's somewhat easier for a smaller company, but I think the pace of the smaller companies or the innovative companies becoming more like the larger companies has actually increased. So when I came into PayPal, one of the things we really were struggling with was innovation and the pace of change. And there were 4 key things that were really important to helping the company really unlock the innovation. The first thing we did is focus on the customer. Really understanding what the customer needs are, using tools and techniques with customer-driven innovation and design thinking. The second thing we did is we realigned and reorganized all of the products to have product lines that the teams could align around and actually own and really understand what that product was and be oriented towards delivering customer experiences specifically for that product. The third piece we looked at is we brought in an agile delivery methodology, so moved from traditional waterfall development into agile. That gave us a lot more visibility, a lot more flexibility, and ultimately led to greater innovation. And finally, pulling in metrics and KPIs. I think that fourth piece in making sure you're really measuring across the changes you're trying to make are really, really important.
Michael, what are the risks in adopting any of these approaches if you're looking at it from the risky point of view?
I would rather turn the question around. I think if you don't take a different approach depending what the outcome is trying to be, you will create more risk than you think. So at Euroclear, As the colleagues have said, we do not segregate, we do not have a steady part and an innovative part. We have to innovate across everything, but the approach we've taken is dependent upon what is the consequence of something going wrong. So, for example, we have two very highly innovative products, the highway, the collateral highway, which means it has to be precise, it has to be first time right. So we take a waterfall approach for that, because the consequence on the risk side of not doing that, we cannot accept. However, on the other side, for our easy ways product range, which is customer interaction, then we don't know what right is, so we have to take an iterative approach with our customers to manage that risk with them and find out what is the correct way forward together with them. So two different approaches, both very innovative, but both very different parts of the organization. And as the colleague said, we have to take the whole organization with us. It's not just an IT topic, it's an enterprise topic.
And what's your experience been like of taking the whole organization with you? Because that's something we hear a lot about, isn't it? That you can have all this innovation, you can have the great ideas, you can have the vision, but if the board isn't on board, or if the senior execs aren't on board, you're going nowhere.
In that sense, it's a matter of where's your starting point. Now for us, failure was not an option, so we were very risk averse. So for us, the challenge has been moving more into grasping ambiguity and moving forward when we don't quite know what the plan is or what the budget's going to be. And so what we have done is, firstly, from an executive point of view, understood that, and then we organized for our whole organization management awareness around it is okay not to know exactly what the answer is now. We'll find it out as long as there's a clarity of what we're trying to do. So that is something that has helped us change the culture within the company.
Kirsten, I saw you nodding away there. Is that a familiar story for you?
It's a familiar story, and we have the benefit of being a business to consumer company. So another thing that we do really to mitigate those risks and to bring people along is we have a philosophy and an ethos which is around employees being the customer. So we can de-risk a lot of our product launches and product releases by alpha and beta testing with our employees. So if you go into a PayPal cafeteria, nobody is pulling out their wallet and pulling out a credit card, swiping to pay. It's a frictionless transaction where you can check in, buy your lunch, and be out the door. So I think we do have the benefit of an employee base that helps us de-risk our product launches.
Catherine, what about from your perspective? I know your background and your role is a bit different, but what Michael was saying there about being risk averse, but also managing to bring the rest of the firm along with you with an innovation or a new idea.
Well, we see really across the industry different companies at different stages of this, and some of it has to do with segments of the industry. One of the things that we talked about is which parts of financial services are perhaps more innovative. We're certainly seeing a lot happening in retail banking because of the changing competitive scene and consumerization in the workplace and in the market. So there are some very immediate imperatives facing retail or consumer banking that if banks want to succeed and not be disintermediated, they must respond to it and they must change. Other segments, maybe it's been a little bit slower to come, but I think forward-looking institutions are recognizing how the overall market is changing. Frankly, the way people want to work, the people that are working at banks, especially younger employees want to work, is different. And so that's driving a lot of these changes as well.
And what are the mistakes that you see being made along the way?
Well, I don't know if I'd call them mistakes, but missteps perhaps, and our panel talked about that as well. One is to look at innovation and some of these changes as a project, a discrete project with a beginning and an end. It's a little bit of a cliche, but we hear that it's a journey. And the panelists talked about having a roadmap, a game plan. You can't just address for the today or the immediate challenges of today. You certainly have to address that. That gets back to that traditional role. But it's being able to take the long view, understanding that there's going to be some failures. I know Kirsten has talked about the concept of failing fast. You have to take some risks. That's a challenge at Euroclear. As Michael said, they can't take risks. So the difficulties, the problems where they get hung up, I think comes around sort of the long view, also some of the cultural issues, underestimating how much this is going to change people's jobs and the way that they work.
And Ron, what about the regulation? Where does that fit into this picture?
So the regulation is just, for us, it's kind of another customer. So we need to obviously adhere to all of the regulation that's out there. but we've got to find a way to meet that objective and meet the goals of our customers and all of the other internal issues we have, like security, et cetera, et cetera. So for us, we look at it in kind of the same way as Kirsten, as just another customer need that drives how we operate through the entire stack.
So it doesn't affect the culture of what you're doing.
It's not a culture-driven thing at all. It's just another thing to be achieved, along with everything else.
Because particularly if you're looking for innovation and you're looking for people to be on that journey, you would imagine that the regulation could stop that creativity, that innovation. Kirsten, is regulation something that has an impact? I mean, obviously it has an impact on everything that everybody does in some ways, but specifically.
And PayPal is in 130 countries, and I think so we are looking at regulation not just from a single country perspective. We've got a global country regulation perspective, and really, I think Deutsche Bank and PayPal, a very large multinational bank, and a company like PayPal, we look at it very, very similarly. It is a product. We really focus on making sure we have compliance and are meeting all of the regulatory requirements across all of our products and all of our flows. Safety and trust is the #1 value that we hold at the company, and I think being compliant with all of the regulations is a really critical part of that.
Michael, if I might bring you back to what Catherine was talking about, the sort of the cultural side of things, and also the fact that perhaps a lot of senior managers are expecting a eureka moment. They're expecting a revolution rather than evolution. And is it difficult? Have you found that explaining to people this is something that's going to happen every day of the week? We're trying to reach an end line rather than have that eureka moment.
I think my personal experience is that most executives understand how difficult it is to change a culture of an organization, in whichever organization you're in. So I've never experienced that people I want it now and I want it before Christmas, if I put it in simple terms.
Lucky you.
But have recognized that working with people is the essence of it. So I'm very pleased that we make the space, we take the time to engage with our staff at all levels of management to discuss what does that mean for us? How do we keep the Swiss clock working on the one side and make sure that there's total innovation on the other? Because they're not in contradiction, they have to go hand in hand. And if you look at it in a simple way, you can think it's in contradiction, or to the term of regulation, people can think that's preventing us, but no, it's not. It's only us, it's our people, and therefore we put a lot of effort on the socializing that strategy, talking about the things with individuals, because it's a people business. At the end of the day, people make the difference, and that's the core of what we try to do.
Well, I wanted to finish off talking about people, because Kirsten, you've already talked about your staff being your consumers as well, and guinea pigs for a lot of what you do. But one thing that I've been hearing a lot in the last couple of days and before that is lack of suitable candidates for these highly technical jobs. Yep. Lack of training. It's obviously it's a political issue that these kids aren't being turfed out of school or university. Is that something you're finding it difficult to fill those roles because the candidates aren't technologically equipped?
I wouldn't say that the challenge is they're not technologically equipped, because technology is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
In most cases, we're having to retrain and reskill most of the employees we get. We also have a lot of business and a lot of developers in India, and most of the developers that come out of India, they've got tremendous intelligence, they have tremendous ability to learn, but they may not know the specific technologies that we're working in. So we've developed a very comprehensive training program that helps all new developers, regardless of what level they are, come in and be able to work in the technologies that we have. I think what's harder for us, we're in the heart of the Silicon Valley. We have a lot of big name competitors, as well as interesting startups that are in the space. So we've got a lot of competition for the talent. So for us, it's really about creating a startup culture inside the company. It's about using the newest and innovative technologies. We use a lot of open source. We really are trying to bring developers who want to contribute back into the open source community and want to work with some of these new technologies. So that's how we're trying to stay competitive.
I think this is a subject we probably could talk about ad nauseum, but I'm afraid I'm out of time. But thank you so much to my panel, Michael Shipton, Kirsten Wahlberg, Catherine Berger, and Rom Ram from Deutsche Bank. Thank you so much. Well, for now, that's it from Sibos TV. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.